And here we go. Jeffery David, welcome to the podcast. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
Man, I have been following you for what seems like a long time, but nobody's been following anybody in BitClout for more than a couple of weeks. But I see you. First time I heard you speaking in a clubhouse about it, and I always kind of troll through there and read people's bios and things you were saying. I was like, oh man, we got to get him on the podcast. And then, we released an episode that we recorded yesterday with Thor, and I had someone drop out today, and I was like, there's some people on my list, and you were like one of three people that I was like, I got to get all three of these people this week. So
Awesome.
come home, and he texted me and just out of the blue said, hey, you want to have Jeffery David on there? I was like, hell yeah, I do. Let's get him. So
I
it's
love him.
perfect.
He's become
Serendipity.
a really good friend, and it's funny because I didn't know any of these people,
Yeah.
and a lot of my music business friends aren't in this thing yet. So I'm sharing with them and casting vision about what I think it could be, with no promises. But Thor's become a good guy, and he's a real cheerleader of what I'm about and what Echosmith's about, and I'm grateful for him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's as I said in the podcast yesterday, he's very garrulous. He's the type of guy that just enters the room and everybody he's everybody's friend and wants to include everyone. So that's
Yeah.
cool. It's a gift.
There's a
So
shadow on me, but hopefully it's fine. But there you go.
no, you look good, man. You look good, and it's a beautiful house in the background. So, yeah. So why don't we just give me the 1 minute version of what your career has been so far,
Okay.
if
Well,
that's possible, because it's
it
prolific.
it's there's been some ups and downs. I got married really early, so at 22, and my wife was 18, and we eloped in a drive-through wedding in Las Vegas, and we had our first baby right away, our son Jamie. And for those first several years, I played in these contemporary jazz groups. I played drums in one, and I played keyboards in another. And I was a leader in both of those because I figured if I was the leader, I could get the gig and I could make a little bit more money. And money was so scarce then. You're all broke when you get married. Certainly playing jazz for a living is no way to get rich, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But I was the leader of those, and I could book the gig. I learned so much. In one of the groups, everybody was way more seasoned and older than I, and I usually was the youngest in every situation, and they would just school me. And I did that for the first 3 years. On the weekends, I would lead worship. So I grew up in the church, and our family loved God. We were grateful to everything that ever happened and give Him all the credit. And so I was a worship leader. And if you don't know what that is, it's like a
Oh yeah.
music director for your listeners, like a
Yeah.
music director that leads songs in a very contemporary church. And that was some of the greatest years of my life. So for 20 years, I pretty much did that. And I was at some really large churches where I could dream up anything I wanted to do. And I had the best musicians here in LA. And one of the churches now was like over 15,000 people. So we could literally do anything. So I had these gigantic teams. I led music. I wrote a song every week on whatever the pastor's message was. But there was heavy people that went there, like guys that were in Jane's Addiction, Chick Corea, some of the girls from En Vogue.
Wow.
Some of the girls from En Vogue went there. John Patitucci. I mean, Eric Marienthal. I mean,
Holy
amazing
cow.
players.
You had to
This
have it
guy,
together, man.
I didn't. I was the youngest of almost everybody there. So, but again, I was just like, I wasn't going to take this job unless I could really dream big and be creative. So then we also learned about like mixing creative elements. And so we would have DJs, we would have, you know, ska bands. I mean, I literally was doing crazy stuff. We would write drama sketches where a real actor who's attending the church would pretend to just be a congregant and then stand up and argue with the pastor to sort of drive a point home, maybe an on hope or something. Let's say, hey man, I'm speaking on hope today, and God can give you hope. And then we had an actor stand up and be like, I don't believe in hope. My wife left me, and where's my hope? And then the pastor responds, and well, there's hope for everybody. We're all beggars at the table, and God's grace and mercies here. And then it would become a very powerful moment. I started thinking like to mix elements, and then I would write a song on whatever that moment was on hope. And what was really cool that helped me, even in business, is I got to learn in front of thousands of people what seemed to move people, what seemed to work. And we would get, hundreds of letters. We would watch videos back and be very critical of ourselves to try to be better, because those 4 or 5 hour services, each one was an hour. So we had 4 or 5 of them on a weekend. We had 168 hours in a week. We wanted to make those great,
Yeah.
So that was really crucial, but that taught me a lot about hiring and firing people. There's hundreds of people I was over in my department, meeting deadlines, doing what you say you're going to do, being held accountable. These are things that naturally us musicians, we run from.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, you ask them, hey, I need you to be here on Thursday at 7. And they're like, yeah, we'll see, man. Hopefully. It's like, no, I had to
Hmm.
learn to be in charge, do what you say you're going to do. And if you don't, there's consequences. So to be a leader, leadership's very lonely as well. But it's been worth it. So I did that up till 40 years old. I quit that at 40 and just felt like I was at a point where I was just mostly having meetings and confrontations,
Mm.
and I didn't like it. And I loved writing music and dreaming things, and I loved business too. And I always had some kind of side hustle going on with a fun business that I was doing. And I quit that to produce records and write songs at 40 years old, and focused in on a young band. At the time was called Ready Set Go, that later became Echosmith, who were my 4 kids. And so that was the start of a really exciting chapter. And there's a lot I can get into there, but to fast forward all of that, I found Coldplay in my house, developed it, put a lot of
Yeah.
money into it, bet the farm, refinanced my house, and went for it and spared no expense. And nobody cared for a long time. I mean, nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's bold.
yeah, and we found it in 3 waves. At first, they would care. It would go crazy. We would get wild offers. The offers weren't right. We weren't going to have the band make children's music. That was a big thing that I was telling the family. It's like, let's not do that. We were offered TV shows because at the time, Hannah Montana was giant, right? And so we had people coming out going, let's do a TV show. Let's sign to Disney, all these different things. And I always felt like that was the wrong move, because I was really keenly aware as I parent to remember what it was like to be these ages. And we're friends with our kids, so that could be another podcast. But I always remembered that when my sister or myself was in that age of 10, 11, 12, 13, you want to seem older, that at some point you throw away every single thing that makes anybody perceive you as younger. So I did not want my band to be making the kind of music that would be part of that throwaway pile that was
Yeah.
going to happen. And so I saw artists also have to try to completely abandon who they were as a kid to try to stake a new
Yeah.
claim into this adulthood. And they're pretty
Miley
wild
Cyrus.
about it. Yeah, they're pretty wild about it. So no judgment there, but I didn't want that for who I was, a
Right.
part of. And so no one cared for a long time. And a good friend of mine named Mike Elizondo, he used to play bass at the church back in the day. His career had just been insanely successful. And his first cuts were all pretty much the whole Eminem first record and 50 Cent's first record. So he went from, overnight to just being a really sought after producer. Later, he got signed to Warner. And when he got signed to Warner, we were being pursued by a lot of labels. And this is really key for this part, is we used to always say this prayer as a family to end the night. Thank God for today and all this stuff. And then we would always end saying, God, let somebody see what we see, let them hear what we hear, and let them obsess about the music. Amen. Good night, guys. High fives. It's kind of family we are. And when Mike reached out to me, and I reached out to him, I go, man, it's Jeffrey. I haven't seen you in, 15 years or something, 17 years. I've been developing this band. I'm producing records full time. I wanna send it to you. There's people chasing, and I don't believe this exists in this form anywhere on earth. And he's like, dude, send it to me. So I send him an EP that I produced, and he's like, I can't listen to it now. Give me a week. And basically, I checked in every Friday, and finally, Shadow's weird. Finally, 4 weeks go by, and I'm like, dude, last chance. I'm not going to check in again. I'm glad we caught up again, but whatever. An hour later, he calls me laughing on the phone. He can't even speak. He's like, I wait a minute. I thought you had one, and I told him in that fourth email, by the way, P.S. These are my 4 kids. I never start with that side note ever,
Yeah.
never. So he calls me laughing like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. Remember that thing
Ah,
we prayed for 3 years. God, let somebody see, let him obsess. He's like, I'm obsessed. And I showed it to Rob Cavallo, the CEO. He's obsessed. And I'm like, Rob
wow.
Cavallo is like my hero producer executive, produced gigantic records, everything from like, Iris's I Don't Want the World, that, all that stuff. Huge records, My Chemical Romance. He was obsessing about something I was developing, and I was stoked. So that was Friday. By Tuesday, they called, pulled the band out of school, met as a whole company. We're obsessed. He said it again. We signed to Warner Brothers Records that day, wrote a record together, the band and I. And from 2000, basically 13 to 16 and a half, we were gone for 3.5 years on the road, touring all over
Wow.
planet Earth, seeing kids sing Cool Kids, Bright, Tell Her You Love Her, and kids that didn't speak a word of English. And 18 to 40 really was the age. People obsessed about this thing, that word again. And it's changed our life. And all along, I really got a knack for business. And I was doing brand deals for the band with our agents. And I really loved the nuance and the creativity of business as much as I loved producing records and writing songs. And I didn't even get into all the other artists and stuff I worked with. That's part of it. That's just fun. But the business side of it, which led me to the BitClout thing, has always been exciting. And I fast forward to today, to 2021, I have a lot of real estate investments. I just got into crypto about 3 months ago with Bitcoin and some smaller coins and Dogecoin for fun. And it's all done really well, way better than my stocks. And I've kicked myself and almost have obsessed where I've gotten the calculator out and added up, if I would have just paid attention to Bitcoin 10 years ago, what the difference would be now, and how we could have
Yeah.
generational wealth. So BitClout came, and I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I started digging in, getting in these rooms. People asking me to moderate and be part of it. And I'm like, I'm never going to miss the Bitcoin thing again. So if we're right, this will be life changing. If we're wrong, I've made a lot of amazing relationships through this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I think it's an exercise in futility to do the math on what could have been with Bitcoin. I think every single person in crypto feels the same way. No Bitcoiner has ever said, "Oh, I shouldn't have bought so much Bitcoin." But
Right.
the point I'm trying to make is it's still early. And so just starting now, like my son-in-law literally today bought his first crypto after I've probably talked to him for 6 months at different times. And now finally he's down that rabbit hole. And I'm, thrilled with that. Would I have preferred him to do that 4 years ago? Yeah, but everybody's got to come to it in their own time. And so, yeah. And then the BitClout thing, I felt kind of the same way. Like, I don't know that I feel like I can equate it to, being early in Bitcoin. And maybe that's because I feel like what's going to happen with BitClout will happen exponentially faster than Bitcoin, which had to be this organic, decade-long, trajectory. We may see a similar thing that may not be as big or as have the longevity, but I think it's going to happen very fast.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You can hear my kid, he's the drummer, clapping in the background, but he's the happiest kid. I'm not kidding. He's 22. He wakes up every day, and I'm not joking. Almost every
Hey,
day he says, Dad, this is going to be the best day ever. And he means
awesome.
it. And I
Hey,
love him for that.
that's drummers. I'm a drummer too. I understand
I'm
you
a
are too. I
drummer.
mean, you can't
Yep.
help but be happy if you're a drummer, I guess. I don't know.
He has the
Yeah.
least amount of struggle in the band. I mean, everyone has an opinion, which as a drummer, that always frustrated me. I'm an equal piano player and arranger and stuff. So when someone, everyone has an opinion on that instrument for some reason. No one's saying to the piano player, like, hey, I wonder if you would just change the voicing of that chord,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
bass player, maybe a little bit of notes. But no one's like, hey, do this and that. Everyone has an opinion. And I got sick of it. And I've just
Really.
felt like I couldn't express all that I wanted to. And I was so used to being the leader. I just I don't need 5 people in a band having an opinion on every single thing I do. I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I never felt
Anyway,
that way so much, but I don't know. It's just, I think you can agree it's a tough life,
yeah, it depends.
working.
I tried
It
to gear
can
my
be hard
kid.
on you.
Yeah, I tried to set my Echosmith up to avoid a lot of those things, the pitfalls. And there's a lot to it that I'm always trying to see. down the football field, 10,000 feet above, whatever that is, into the future. I even ask the band all the time. As on the parent side, I would ask them, like, what would your future self say to this decision you're about to make? Are you ever going to regret doing the right thing? And you most of the time will never regret doing the right thing. Are you going to regret eating right, exercising, investing your money right? No, you're not.
Well, they're lucky to have, someone on their side that they can trust taking care of them. Maybe they don't realize that yet, but somebody who's been there, so to speak. And I see too many young artists that don't have that support.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for that. I mean, and my wife, just to throw, shout her out. She is the glue to our family, and she runs the tour staff and the bus, and so she also settles all the venues on tour. She's the type of person that can sort of see through the matrix and see a hole and how to fix it and to move. A lot of times the label will route us to Europe or something, and she's like, "Hey, I'm not trying to step over your position or anything. I just want to just offer some advice that if you were to do this, this, and this, you could save like 14 grand." And then I pipe in, like, if we could save 14 grand, that's like a music video,
Yeah.
So she is so part of this. And she's the one that thought of the name Echosmith, just shouting it out. And she is an incredible human being, and she's just a freak of nature. She's good at everything. Check her out, Linda Rocker Mom at Instagram. And she hates being spotlighted, but I brag on her because she's so good at everything.
That's awesome. Quite honestly, I've always loved the name Echosmith. I thought that was a cool name the first time I heard it, and I loved the song, Cool Kids. I actually never knew that it was the same, the band that did the song. I just hear it on the radio all the time, with my kids in the car. And I'm like, as a writer, I'm like, that's just a damn good song, and they love it.
Well, thank you. It's funny, we turned that song into the label, and at first they didn't like it. And they didn't like Bright, which is also it's a really special song. It's been very successful. That whole album did really good, but there are 3 songs that really changed our life, and then a series of other songs after that. But that it's interesting, the band's first song, the first song we wrote together, has gone on to sell millions and millions and millions of singles all over the planet. And we have platinum, double platinum, triple platinum, quadruple platinum plaques from almost every major country in the world. It's really fun and fulfilling on about 10 levels.
Yeah. You're certainly blessed with that, to be able to do it with your family. What's their thoughts on what, in my impression? All right, I'll just say I see you moderating rooms in Clubhouse, and I'm like, okay, this dude's got it going on. And what could his family be saying about, Dad, what's your deal? You're so obsessed with this BitClout thing. Is that what's happening?
My wife is saying that. Right now, only Graham lives at home. But my wife is like, she's been saying this thing in the morning that's pretty funny. And it's really important. Just side note, I love these little tidbits. It's just the way I am. Is if you are going to get married soon, or you're with someone you're thinking about getting married to, make sure that person is a healthy mirror to you, who can tell you the truth, who can say to you, don't do that. That's weird. Don't send that email that might screw your life up.
Right.
Stop picking out on Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies.
I think we may have the same wife.
We might. I hope not. No, I'm kidding. You want to pay her bills? And so, and they're all mothering us in the end still, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now we've been married so long, it's all funny. But for real, you do need that mirror. But she's been saying lately, she goes, what are you going to do in the real world today? So that's what, she's calling it LARPing, which again, she also says she's so smart. I married a beautiful nerd. And it's silly to think of in those terms, but I actually still do, because it was such a thing in the 80s. I graduated in 87, and it was a big deal in Coronado and San Diego. It's stupid. It's superficial. Don't get me wrong. Nerds rule the world, and I love nerds, and I've hired plenty of them. They're great. But in my mind, I still think, like, in these stupid absolutes, like, oh, that guy's kind of a nerd. I like him. Or he was cool in school. Or that guy, if you were a boogie boarder, we wanted nothing to do with you as surfers when I used to surf. It's still in those minds, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm immature. I still think if someone says, oh, I'm this age, I'm thinking, oh, that means you were a senior when I was in 9th grade. I don't know why I do that, but I do it.
Yeah. Well, my wife just tolerates that I'm going to do weird stuff, career wise and things like, this podcast. She doesn't even know what the podcast is about. She just knows. I just finally said, "Hey, I'm going to do my own podcast because I've been doing one with my partner and I've been really the producer, co-host of that one." And that's been a project that I just layered onto the other business things I have going on as it is. And then I announced a few weeks ago, I think I'm going to do my own podcast. And she's like, "Oh, okay. So when do you expect to fit that in?" And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do a quick down and dirty, throw them out as fast as I can type of thing. And then BitClout, came along right at the same time. And I don't even know which came first, quite honestly, but seemed like a perfect match. But she's just not interested in anything bit related. She's traveled with me on shoots for our crypto project, crewed some, which she said when we left Japan, she's like, "I'm never working for you again." I quit. I'll travel, but I'm not working. So,
that's funny.
But she's just not interested in Bitcoin or crypto or anything. She just tolerates that I'm somewhat obsessed with it and just knows that that's what I do. But she doesn't want to, she's like, "That's your thing,"
Isn't that funny? My wife is similar too, and she doesn't even want to know what our bank statement is. She doesn't have anything to do with that stuff, even though she would bring a lot of value to it. But we just kind of found our roles of what we're good at, and we just sort of fell into it. And she always just said, "As long as I can buy groceries, I'm good." And to be really honest, it's like, any of us are entrepreneurs. It's like, I've made a lot of money the past decade, but geez, I've had some crazy times. Just to be really honest, it's like in 2010, I was down to $267 to my name.
Wow.
No more savings, 3 kids in private school out of 4, a mortgage, a stupid Range Rover, and I was producing indie records at the time. And my God has done this kind of thing in my life multiple times where stuff just shuts down. And that means it's time to go another direction. Back when I was playing jazz, every gig went away out of the blue. This pastor called me, "Would you be our music director, worship leader guy?" And this happened. So leading up to 2010, I know this is BitClout, but it's life related, BitClout, is, I ran out of money. All these indie records had put off doing a record. This kind of around the housing crisis. And it was after trickle effect of that. And all these records that were scheduled were gone, all of them at the same time. But I honestly was getting burnt on producing so many indie records. And what you find with indie music, a lot of it is the great people don't have any money, and the people that maybe aren't as great have a lot of it. So you got to find the balance of picking artists that are fulfilling, but also paying the bills. But you end up producing a lot of soccer moms that no one will ever hear. So I'm like, I really want to get out of that. And the fact that I ran out of money was a catalyst that I believe God did again. Hello, getting your attention kind of thing. And I was out of money. My wife had worked at Starbucks. She'd always been a stay-at-home mom, and being really real here. And I was thinking, screw it, I'm going to sell all my gear. And so I came from the church world at these huge churches, so I could always get gear at gnarly prices. Just a thing that I could do. And if I sold gear, I always made money. So I'm like, screw it, I'm going to sell all my studio gear. I'm going to figure something out. Then I thought, wait a minute, I have an idea. So I started to study eBay for like a weekend. This is just how I get. When I get into something, I go all in. So all weekend I studied eBay, and I'm like, there isn't one person on eBay selling like a full little studio rig that someone can buy and they can make records at home. I mean, fully done, like software license, the computer, the screen, a mic preamp, speakers, headphones, and whatever else. And so I'm like, I have an idea. I took like 20 pictures of my setup with more gear, less gear. So it looked like I had 20 setups because I found a way to duplicate this setup in 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, I have an idea. I'm going to form a thing. And I came up with some name on eBay. I think it was Pro Tools Guy 310. And I was out of money, dude. I was having to figure this out. And so I listed 38 listings or something crazy like that of studio gear that literally I could duplicate and get at prices no one in the world could get with text, loading your computer up legally and all this stuff, and set your licenses up so you could just, plug and play. And dude, I made $100,000 in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I had $267 and I made $100,000 on eBay. And for 2 years, I did this eBay thing, and then I focused on developing 10 times harder, went deeper into Echosmith and developing artists. And then I started to get cuts around the world, started working with more major artists, and I haven't produced an indie record since. I stopped doing that in when the band got signed to Warner. But I thank God that that was the catalyst that got me out of that, and also funded us to really dig in deeper with Echosmith. So it's
Right.
really cool.
So where do you think he's leading you with BitClout?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was really sort of waking up feeling a little bit like, you know what, I need to have some more balance, and I need to put this stuff first too. So I'm evaluating this. I really feel like BitClout can offer freedom for people. That's if I were to describe it. And I've had some really cool conversations with some very high level people. And my description, and I may not be right, my description is, this feels like month one of Facebook if we were all at Harvard and we were let in on buying some of the stock, having a little piece, combined with Robinhood. And I don't know if it's going to work, but if it does work, it's going to change our lives. And it could fund everything. And there's no middle person between you and your audience. Everybody gets a coin. Everybody's an influencer. Everyone's an artist in some way. And it's very exciting. It almost, in my opinion, I could be wrong, it feels almost too big to fail now. So many people are involved, and you see people like Pamela Anderson, and you know that whoever the original creators were, you know they were watching that. You know, someone probably had some kind of conversation with the original investors with that, because he was so put together. And well done, team, well done.
It was well done. I was highly disappointed, because I probably sent her 20 DMs this week saying, I want you on the podcast. Like, it seems like you should do this recorded, you know? And I'm not going to give up on that. But at the same time, I mean, she was very impressive. And from, you know, our listeners, this was, you know, it took place last night on Clubhouse. Pamela Anderson, who just joined the platform, most searched internet star ever, you know, when the internet came about, so to speak. And she's just an impressive woman, and activist and all of that. But what I was disappointed in,
that side of her. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. And I honestly didn't know it until I started researching her, because I was trying to pitch questions to her and like, how would we do this podcast if she would come on? So I don't think she's into it like she says. I think she's going along with it with her son right now. I mean, I'm almost like thinking I'd rather just get her son on here. You know, I guess she kind of left me with an impression of, well, he says it's great, and principally it sounds great, but I don't know that I'm seeing her really want to get into it and engage it. Like, I mean, I don't blame her. She's like turned herself off to, you know, the digital world almost entirely. So why would she want to start playing this game? But she obviously sees some real potential in working through her son.
Yeah, I mean, our kids turn us on to stuff all the time, you know. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm holding my phone, so I know this is changing.
That's fine.
Sort of
it's
camera
fine.
angle. So sorry, audience. But our kids, you know, when you have kids, they turn you on to all kinds of stuff. And I think they make us cooler, of course. And you know, I'll get in arguments in a joking way with my kids, and they're like, "Don't wear that. You know, why do you still roll your jeans up? You know, that's over 2 years ago." And I'm like, "Well, I invented that in 7th grade. I was the first guy to peg my pants." And anyway, it's pretty funny.
I think you and I are a lot alike, and I think I like to think that I turn my kids onto some cool stuff too.
For sure.
That some dads couldn't do, you know, or wouldn't do.
New Order, Peter Gabriel, Tears for Fears, early U2, all that stuff. You know, I'm still trying to write.
That's the same stuff that I'm.
I want to write that again, you know.
Oh my God, I'm the same way. And you know, we have the Alexa battle, you know, which I hate Alexa, but they love to do it at dinners. Like, Alexa, play this, Alexa, play that. So I'm always coming up with something that is so far beyond what they could comprehend music wise. And I'm like, this was my music, you know. And my son always just, next thing you know, he's playing that song like Whip It. He never knew Whip It.
Dude, that's a
And I
sick song. I didn't get them at
and
first, by the way. Yeah.
oh my God, he's like, for a month, he's like, play Whip It, play Whip It. Or there was one 2 weeks ago where Living Color, Cult of
Oh
Personality.
my gosh, they were
And
they were the answer to Red Hot Chili Peppers.
oh my God.
That
And
was the sophisticated answer.
we're driving down the road and I'm like, it comes on, it's just he and I, and I'm like, oh God, this is an awesome rock song. And I crank it. And I never know if he's digging it until like a day later and he's walking around the house singing it and looking it up on the web. And
That's so fun.
it's like when he was 2 years old and I played Tom Sawyer for him for the first time and cranked it in the
I
car.
had you. We
And
had, of course, you had to know that beat. You know, that was one
oh
of the
my
beats you
God.
had
I
to know.
mean,
Did you know
I
Sunday Bloody Sunday too?
oh my God, all that. But like
Then you had
Rush, I was a drummer, in high school when Moving Pictures came out. So I pretty much woodshedded that thing like for 2 years.
yeah.
And that and others. But man, my kids were turned on to Rush for like 2 years after I played him that one song. They were like listening to it all the time. They've lost it now, but yeah, we kind of got off track there. We could talk music way
No.
more than BitClout probably, but
Well, I think all this stuff leads to who we are. You know, it's funny musically. Me and the band are really on the same page.
yeah,
Noah, the bass player, he will throw it left of center, and we'll argue in a healthy way a bunch. You know, it's interesting as you make records and as a producer and songwriter, you really realize as you start having hits that you're kind of making fast food. Okay, we're
yeah,
serving fast food, but you want to have your spin on fast food, right? Where
yeah,
people
yeah,
consume it pretty quickly. People may not remember all the ingredients, or they may not even know who did it. And you find as you do studies that like 85% of listeners will love a song but not have any clue of who the artist is, but
right.
15% will and cling on, and then that's your base.
Yeah. But do you think that's our new age? I mean, because I don't feel like it was that way when we were younger. I felt like we knew the bands,
Yeah, I
or
think so,
was
but
it
I think
just
there
us?
was probably it's probably us, but I think there was the radio culture. You're at the office, you're listening to Kiss
Yeah,
FM or Coast or something goofy, you
yeah,
know, and you're like, oh, I don't know what that is, you know. And some bands, they also didn't get pushed where you could see the visual, you know. Once you saw Missing Persons or something, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the most compelling thing I've ever seen. Or
yeah.
what was that band that was like from England? It's like, and so the conversation to that weird like
Oh, yeah,
Englishy
yeah, yeah, yeah,
unto
yeah,
the thing, you know. Like
yeah.
when you saw the visuals with those things and all the early U2 is like, okay, it was ingrained in who you are. Now we
Yeah,
have like a billion channels. Who's who?
yeah,
You know, it's noisy. You know, you get it.
yeah, definitely. So tell me, all right, so let's bring it back to BitClout and music. But so you started a record label based on BitClout. And so I just don't, I need to understand that. Like, how do you envision that playing out?
Well, I'm figuring it out, and the way I see it now, because I do have a traditional label within the Orchard Sony system. I signed a guy named Audion, and we had a nice top 10 song called Favorite Sound. And then Echosmith is in the Warner system now with our own label over there. So when I see this happening, I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, things can just happen so much quicker if it works. The blockchain it takes away the middleman.
Hmm.
There's so many possibilities of what this could be. Everything could be quicker. You could get artists paid really fast. So I see it really, if I had to break it down, and I'm still figuring this out. So I see it as an A&R tool and finding an artist and really assisting the artist with on the creative side and making
Hmm.
great songs and records. And that doesn't change, and that requires human beings to do it. I don't care what anybody says. Robots will never
Right.
take that away. And then the technology as they add on to it, and creators, brilliant creators, add on to what this can be. I just think for an artist, as we do deals, we can make incredibly fair deals to be paid well on the creative to help you make your songs or the songs that we write with you the best they can be, to give you a chance to go as wide as possible. That should be paid very well. That's a
Hmm.
traditional service. That shouldn't change in my view. But how we get there and how quick it gets to fans, and most
Yeah.
importantly, how quick the artist can get paid, that needs to change. And someone brought up in one of the rooms, I think you were in this morning, it was a good point. Her name was Julia, and I believe she's from Russia. Uh, you know, her and I were talking, and we both came to the conclusion that we're not out to replace Spotify and Apple and every single one of these huge companies, because a lot of these companies are done very well. The functionality of it is fun. It's easy. You go look at Robinhood and trading, like that platform, whether you like Vlad and the owner or whatever, that is one of the most fun programs to use to trade stocks. The colors are pretty. There's dark mode. It's obvious how much money I made. We're not out to replace all these systems because I don't think I think that may take too long in certain instances and people want to get their music out. So I think in general, this will force existing companies, sorry, I'm getting a million phone calls. This will force existing companies to change and reevaluate how they partner with artists and doing fair deals. And I'd like to see that, you know.
I think that's inevitable. I mean, obviously Apple changed that to a degree, but I think this is going to be next level, you know, rewriting how artists are paid. But you bring a good point that, you know, there's still going to need to be that A&R assistance and marketing and all of that. Do you foresee any kind of layer 2 version of BitClout? You know, I heard someone, I think it was one of the Crescenstein guys a couple of days ago, talk really just painting a picture of how people will build on top of this, and it, you know, like there will be other platforms built on top that allow for other functionalities. And like, could there be a Spotify or a iTunes on top of BitClout, where the transaction then is blockchain related, blockchain based? You know, maybe you have microtransactions or, you know, smart contracts. I mean, there's got to be some things in there that, you know, take care of all the mechanicals and all these things. I mean, it just gets complicated.
Yeah, I think it still is going to require, you know, human beings to run it, and I think all that stuff's going to get built. I hope it gets built. You know, there's a lot of what's so impressive to me in these communities that we're part of, and this club, and I really feel like BitClout would not be anywhere where it is without Clubhouse.
I agree.
Because the functionality of BitClout is very minimal right now. It does feel like Facebook day one, you know, kind of vibe, even though I wasn't on Facebook day one, but I've seen it. There's so much innovation with young people. I mean, I'm literally blown away by 17, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 24-year-olds who are running hedge funds and stuff, like people that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars. A lot of these kids are like programming. I was talking to someone, Tony, who I'm gonna bring on my team, Tony Wu, and Tony's 17. He's in 11th grade. He's already had like several startups. And I was talking like, I wish there was a way, we've got to find a way to message all your top coin holders at once. And in the way the community acts as an app to be able to reach your fans and hit them in one fell swoop. And maybe put them in categories, because I also want to figure out what the band loves the platform, by the way, and the band's dug in. They haven't told their fans yet, but they've dug in to get into it. But in a way, we've got to be able to reward all the fans, not just the richest ones who can, you know, do these crazy buys, but to reward everyone. But at the same time, we want them to invest in term.
I think I lost your audio for a second.
So you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So you want them to, you want them to what?
We want them to stick around. We want the fans and investors into these coins, into my stuff, Jeffery David, or BitClout Records, or the Cool Kids Fund, or we have another one called Cool Kids. We want them to stick around to help us fund what we want to do. And so we've got to find a way to not only spend this currency somehow, which I'm a big proponent of, and I have done some crazy stuff. I'm going to hire an assistant with it using that money, the BitClout currency. But we've got to find a way to, you know, take money out and make records, pay for a tour bus, you know, fund whatever music videos and things without disrupting the price and screwing the other investors over. But we're being very clear with people that get involved with us. I think every creator should, that be like, listen, there's gonna be times I got to take 25 or 50% out. This is to fund my world, and you get to be part of it. And I'm going to put some of my profits back into the coin. I'm going to, you know, reward you guys, but I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this to fund my world, which you're a part
Yeah.
of. And I think if you cast vision with people to say, listen, you can be part of this journey.
Yeah. But that's the part that I've been thinking about that a lot too. And it makes me think, well, all that you described is what a disclosure document would be, some sort of prospectus or something to that effect, where you're letting investors know, okay, here's our cap table, here's our our use of funds, and all the things that companies do when they're raising money, and disclosing what you're going to be doing with that money and what your goals are. And that's the part where I fear people coming along, regulators, and saying, well, now you're doing an offering and you're not registered, and all of that sort of thing. So, I have faith a lot of this will be sorted out, but I agree that's where the value is. What you just described is like, because I look at it as, okay, well, here we're doing a podcast and there's people have put money into it. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but I can't really do anything with that. It's like, well, should I maybe just focus more on buying other people's coins? Because then I can liquidate if I need to.
Yeah, and they've come up with off
a
ramps. I'm
head
not sure
scratcher.
about all that.
I don't know.
Because it's all new and it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just, you and I see it the way it should be, but I just worry about the people who say it ought to be something else.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, who's an expert at this point? And it's
Well,
interesting
none
is
of
why
us.
we're talking. I saw a text message. Right.
Right.
It's interesting. I saw a text message. I won't reveal who it is, but I have a friend who, him and his wife are insanely wealthy, like in the Billionaires Club. And I've been sharing with him and this stuff, not trying to get him on or any of these things, but just curious because, a lot of people in that world will hear about this stuff or will ever hear about it, right?
Yeah.
And he just sent me a text. It just popped up while it came on. This is not advice, but his text showed an emoji with someone, doing this. And he's like, take the money and run. That's what his text just said. And, but he hadn't heard of it before I told him about it. But that's an interesting thing that he said. I'm not going to do it, but at least I'm committed to seeing where this goes. Because again, if we're right, boy, is this going to be cool. If we're wrong, okay, I wasted some time and I wasted 10 grand.
Well, I disagree. I don't think you're ever wasting time in this type of thing. I think you're always, whether it pans out or not, it leads you to the next thing. And
of course, I don't mean it fully as an overall statement, but I'm gonna have to write it off. It's like, okay, I lost 10 grand, and you have to have a conversation with your wife, just like you will, who's saying, "What are you doing today? It's going the real world." Oh, but I made all these. She's like, "Yeah, sure you did." So you got to sort of explain yourself, and I have made great relationships, so I'm
and the relationship thing, like when I asked Thor this in the last episode, and what he was most confident in about this platform, and I expected kind of a tech answer, or platform answer, but for him it was about the community, and that's a strong statement. And I wonder, that's the part about this that I'm most interested in witnessing as this goes forward, and it's why I probably get more I enjoy listening to Clubhouse rooms about it more than I do taking part in it, just to hear all the ideas and the friendships. Like you and Thor obviously have a friendship now through this that you probably didn't know each other 2 weeks ago, and you and I.
These are people that some of these guys will be crew for life.
Yeah.
Some of these guys will be crew for life, and I'd let stay at my house, and I mean, so you can also look at it this way. Let's say this thing doesn't work, which I think it's going to. Let's say it doesn't. Okay, I spent $10,000 to market myself and my brand and what I'm about, and I've made a zillion contacts and a bunch of friends. So that's worth $10,000, right?
Yeah. Well, I just think I don't have any inkling that you're going to lose that $10,000. I think just based on what I'm seeing, there's going to be a far greater amount of money being discussed if this thing catches on like I think it will. Right or wrong, if it falls apart, when that'll happen, I have no clue. But I think there's going to be a relative gigantic increase coming up. So,
Yeah.
and that's partly why I was so interested in making a BitClout podcast. Is more about just being there as a documentarian of it, talking to people like you and talking to other, I want to talk to influencers, but I want to talk to just the everyday person who's just kind of come into this thing. We all come from different parts of the world, different lifestyles, different everything. And I mean, why does God pick us to be these people that have, we're very unique is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes in life, things, people find themselves as somewhat chosen in a way to be a part of something, good or bad. And that's kind of how I look at this, is like, we're just the odd people that were picked sort of randomly to be a part of this new platform.
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you. I lost you for a second there, but I was just referring to about how random it is that we're all just,
I can't hear
we're
you
just,
right now. I don't know why. I think it's out for 2 seconds.
yeah.
Okay, there we go. How's that?
Yeah, I can hear you just
For some
fine.
reason I can't hear you, and I have no mutes going on.
Well, I'll just, why don't you talk and I'll lip read and, and then translate.
Hey. I can't hear you.
Right.
Can you hear me? Wave if you can.
All right. Yeah, I can hear
Hey.
you. I can hear you just fine.
I see you, but I can't hear you.
Well,
Should I
doggone
click
it.
the link again?
Yeah. Yeah. So here we go. We'll definitely edit this out of the audio part of this, but that's the nature of internet recording. Um,
Buddy.
all right.
Yeah,
Did
it
we
kicked
get you
me
back?
out. Yeah, it kicked me out for a minute.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the wonders of the internet, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the BitClout platform these days.
I
But
want to
no,
say real quickly that the reason the timing for this was so special for me was because we went through a lot of regime changes at the current label the label we were at the time, and there was so much staff turnover that we ended up leaving and then going back having our own label. But because there's such changeover, I really feel like there has to be a solution for us managers and producers of artists to basically beef up and increase our own staff, so whatever happens to the label, we can weather the storm of change, which is now inevitable and very constant. And
yeah,
so this became a wonderful answer to that. If it works, to be able to fund all we need to fund without waiting too long to be able to have access to those funds and to get going and make music that the world hears and feels good about.
that's awesome. And I'm excited to see how that goes. I mean, because you definitely get the whole idea of a creator coin, that it can underwrite art, and not just as here's a reward, Mr. Artist, Mrs. Artist. It's, we're a part of your team and we're going to help you create art. And I'm
Right.
excited to see how artists work with that. And I'm excited to see how fans work with it, because that's a part of the process they haven't been a part of at this stage.
Yeah, and for them to see and be transparent about the finances, for them to look in the account and say, this is how much is in there, this is how much was spent, this is what we did with the money, this is who took it out.
Mhm.
It's going to be a very exciting, transparent time. The
Yeah.
deals that we will do will just be super fair and
Right.
pay the people to help you make the music and A&R the project really well, and then let's split everything else and win together. And that was a very
Yeah.
U2 approach. It's a very Echosmith approach, and the band splits every dime equally. And if one succeeds, they still get a piece. As far as the three members, there was four. Our one son quit, but 3 are left in there, and they split it evenly. And then I never take more than my manager fee. And it's important that everybody's on the same page, but it's a fair system. There's one person getting all rich while the other guys are hungry. And that breaks the band up real fast.
Mm-hmm. So to me, everything you described sounds like NFTs need to be a part of this for the fans. Like that's the part everybody's trying to figure out. How do you reward the fans that are taking part in in the process so that it comes full circle? So you've got my mind racing trying to think through that, but
yeah, I think rewards are, I'm saying it all the time. I've been waving the flag. I feel like I'm one of the few that keeps saying, not only, it's exciting that people are investing into their creator coins, people's coins, but how do we spend the currency? So let's get creative and start accepting BitClout as a currency. So, you now can book Echosmith for a private show using BitClout. You can pay for a meet and greet, digital meet and greet with BitClout. I think I'm even, I do VRBO. We have, some properties. Thinking, let's make that an option too.
Yeah.
You could stay at my cabin in Idaho for BitClout. I'm hoping you give me Bitcoin too, because I really like Bitcoin too. Yeah, right. But you know what I mean? As long as we can get back into Bitcoin, whatever. But if we can find ways to spend it.
Well, it strikes me that BitClout's really just a stable coin of Bitcoin.
100%. That's how I see it. I'm new to it, so if you've been in it longer than me, you have to tell me. But that's how I describe it. I was talking to a really big artist last night on the phone, a friend of mine, and he's like, "My mind's racing. I don't understand this." I'm like, "Just think of it. Go as simple as you can. 400 years ago, me and you have 1 million sheep, and I need to buy 1,000 of them. And I have a wagon, or I have 15 donkeys. Which one will you take for those? And I go, just currency has evolved, and now we're dealing with this kind of currency. It's the same thing. I want to buy something that you have, And he's like, "Oh, I get it." And he's a smart guy, but he gets it. Well, he goes. So his basic thought was, "This is a human NFT." I go, "Okay,
yeah,
I get that."
Yeah, and you're gonna make fractional units of that human,
little pieces,
Yeah, tokenized. So, man, you got my mind racing, and now I'm excited to watch what you're doing because I foresee this thing's going to take you on a journey you never envisioned with your history in the music industry and your connections. I think there's some bigger plays here that maybe you haven't thought of. So maybe we need to collab a little bit.
Come on, especially if you got into cryptocurrency, when you said you did in 2012 or something.
No, not that. I wish. I actually started mining in 2012, and it was no fun. I was like, "Oh, I got 2 cents worth of Litecoin for a week's worth of mining." So I put it aside, and then I didn't get back into it until 2018, and just really went full. Like I came in the crypto winter, and I've been doing media productions around crypto during the crypto winter. So, genius, right?
Yeah.
But now we're at a point in time where we're able to kick back in, and we're going to shoot at the Bitcoin conference, I hope, in June, which, we're all like music. We're like musicians. We haven't been able to travel, and it's driving us crazy.
Yeah. I would just say for any listeners, if you're excited about, one of them apart, I have BitCloutRecords. I have at Jeffery David. I have at Echosmith and at the Cool Kids Fund. If you're excited about what I do, I'm always open to a DM or an email, JD at cranberrymanagement, spelled out all the way. I'm open for collaboration. I'm very excited. And I think passion goes a long way, and we can figure this out together. And if it's not this, it'll be something else. And it's just an exciting time.
Isn't it? Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough, man. This has been great fun.
All right, my brother. Talk soon.